Ladies and gentlemen, now if we're going back a year to November 2017, if you opened a crystal and got a Venom, if you got a Carnage, if you got a Luke Cage or a Red Hulk, or maybe even Winter Soldier, it would be a day-ruining moment, man. It was such a bad time if you got any one of these champions. But I think 2018 has been quite kind to us. Kabam, making the absolute fortune that they are ramping up their operation, ramping up their development team, and we're seeing more and more time to kind of revisit some of the older characters and also buff characters via synergies. Obviously, my preference is always that a character gets revisited individually and gets some really sick stuff, but you know, if there's a synergy buff that makes the character super good like Winter Soldier, I'll be a little bit salty about it for a while, but eventually, you know, I'll take it. But today, I wanted to talk about 2019 and 15 champions that I would like to see buffed. I think in the whole scale of Marvel Contest of Champions, there's almost about 130 characters in the game now. There are so many different champions, and I would say about 40% of the characters overall are very behind in comparison to a lot of the demigod tier and god tier champions, or characters that I would consider around that level of power. They're just kind of missing like damage, utility. They're just so far behind on a lot of axis, and you know, you'll look at like an old champion and you'll look at like a god tier champion, and the god tier champion is doing like 20 times more stuff in terms of the utility and can also deal like 10 times the damage as well. So there are those characters that have just been left in the dust that I want to have a talk about today, and go over maybe some like clever ways or cool ideas that I think certain characters could be revamped and reworked with like new mechanics that have been brought in the game, like persistent charges, that I feel like would work very well for the theme of the character. But today we're just going to be talking about characters that need to be buffed and spitballing a few ideas around. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with number one, which is Colossus. So Colossus recently had some new synergies of Omega Red and Emma Frost, and we did a gameplay video, but he still sucks even with those synergies, man. Very underwhelming. I'd like to see kind of just the passive on Colossus to increase his damage and power gain per armor up, but it'd be very cool as well if the persistent charge mechanic was added to this character, and that every time you threw a special, one of those armor up buffs was converted to a passive that lasts for the remainder of the quest. So you know, you're constantly ramping up your damage, you're constantly ramping up your power gain, and also some nice bonus effects would be if the special attack, because Colossus has very low crit and crit damage, if the special attacks had increased critical hit chance and also crit damage. Maybe as well, if he had something like a damage cap on special attacks, would make him even more useful utility-wise. If this character took like 10% damage max from any special, could tank multiple special frees as well. And I think his special free animation were kind of the big slam down. It'd be very nice to see like a stun associated with that. Maybe a power lock as well, but just something that completely like knocks the opponent out cold for a few seconds so you can hammer in. But that'd be very cool to see. But I think persistent charges of armor up and kind of like ramping up his damage so he's getting stronger and stronger as the quest progresses would be really cool to see for Colossus. Now, the second character is an OG wet noodle. We've got the classic version of Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. Such an underwhelming champion, left in the dust, ladies and gentlemen. But I think with persistent charges, he doesn't need to be left in the dust. I think if he gained one persistent charge every time he kind of enrages and goes to his, you know, Fury and all the buff stage, that lasted permanently and kept on ramping up and up, which gave him more Fury, more crit damage, more crit chance, and also more regeneration amount with his special too. This would be a good way to kind of make this character just grow even more, even stronger, even angrier. I think it would suit the theme of Groot quite well, and could be a little bit fun to do. So I really like the idea of kind of him getting, you know, a little bit more angry, a little bit more upset, kind of growing in terms of that fury as well, but also growing in terms of his strength and regeneration. So yeah, I'd love to see Groot get a little bit of a revamp, but I think there's quite a bit they could do, man. Groot is in dire need of a revamp, though. He's definitely one of the top 5 characters, in my opinion. And then character number 3 that we have on the list is Hulkbuster. So I'd love to see Hulkbuster, first off, get double immunity. So he should be immune to bleed and poison, in my opinion. But I would also like to see him kind of being this very high-tech piece of armor, have the ability to like scan his opponent and do something like replicate buff similar to Morningstar. That'd be really, really good. I really like the theme as well, because the special one, you kind of like shunt into the opponent of having a power drain associated with that. Maybe something like, you know, 25% power drain, so you can knock a bit of power off the opponent, or 30%, or maybe even 40% like Hawkeye. That'd be really good and kind of fits in with the tech class quite well. It'd be very nice as well to see shock damage added to the special 2 when he fires off that cannon to kind of increase his damage output a little bit more, and the special 3 where he picks up the opponent, he slams them down into the ground. If that had power lock and stun, that would be really, really cool as well. And I think kind of with the scale of that animation, man, it should definitely do a little bit more than it does at the moment, which is apply an armor break. But I'd also very much like to see his armor break durations increased a little bit more, and maybe the special 2 one be a little bit more effective as well, and have a bit more base damage on the character. But those are, you know, some cool stuff that I would like to see with Hulkbuster. I think there's a lot of room with this character to make him significantly more interesting. And then we also have another classic OG character at number 4 that has been left in the dust, and I was playing around with just before this, which is War Machine. So War Machine, you know, he only really gets the damage when you drop below 20% and you get those Fury buffs. So I think having something along the lines of like, whenever you get 12 combo hits, if you could activate Empty the Clip and get those 12 stacks of Fury and armor up, so you're kind of cycling through, you know, the 12 Fury stacks there as you go on, and you can time like the specials to coincide with having the Fury. I think that'd be really, really cool. But I'd also like to see an increase in his bleed damage from his special 1. And also the armor break duration. I think something as well that you could have with War Machine, maybe some of these other characters as well, is the special 2, because it's quite a big blast, or maybe the special 3 as well, could shatter the armor and disable robots, because currently Medusa's really the only champion that could do that, but it would be nice to see that on other characters as well. So I'd like War Machine to be pimped out a little bit, but I think there's a lot you can do with War Machine in terms of his damage if you want to make him raw damage crazy. But I think, you know, that those steps are maybe a step in the right direction to making this character a little bit more fun and interesting to play. And then next up we have She-Hulk, who I don't really have too many crazy ideas for, but I think the first thing is that a chance to stun on all special attacks is quite low in comparison to other characters, but the stun duration is also quite nice as well. But there is an increased chance to stun with She-Hulk depending on the opponent's size, but that seems to be kind of the theme of She-Hulk there. So yeah, I'd like to see an increased stun chance, which, you know, makes it very likely against smaller characters, but maybe guaranteed against some of the bigger ones as well. I'd like to see she has this almost useless awakened ability which reduces certain stats against certain classes, but again, it's really, really rubbish. So maybe if she had some unique advantages against certain class, like True Strike against Science, or maybe the ability to mitigate power gain against Mystics, I think could be quite cool for her relentless studying and research against certain matchups. I also think a good way to do She-Hulk, because it's always been to a certain extent about like parrying and heavy attack to get some big damage off on this character. If she had a bit of a jacked up heavy attack on all occasions, that'd be very, very nice as well. And maybe if you want She-Hulk to kind of follow this Hulk Fury effect, maybe she could have some sort of persistent charges which increase you know, Fury as she goes on and battles deeper and deeper, and maybe also has some sort of armor break associated with it as well. So I think those could be some fairly cool mechanics that you could add into She-Hulk there. Definitely a bit to be explored there. And next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Patriot, the Iron Patriot, everybody's favorite character. So Norman Osborn in the Iron Patriot suit. I think Iron Patriot, he just needs like, first off, I think the special 1, being a tech character, man, he's awfully void of utility at the moment. So if his special 1 could apply heal block as well with the blast, that would be really, really good. Kind of puts him into that Yondu range as well. Maybe exactly the same heal block as Yondu would be very, very nice. It'd be also very cool to see the special 2, as well as stunning, apply a power lock as well. I think the combo of having like a stun and a power lock is very, very powerful, because, you know, you can just beat into the opponent without having to worry about pushing to a special 3. So that'd be really cool. I think on the special attacks, if his armor break chance could be increased up to 100% just to guarantee it happens would be very, very nice as well. And also, if the armor breaks could maybe be, you could have them like be a little bit weaker but last longer, and then when you get to a certain amount of stacks of armor break, apply armor shatter as well. And then you've got the third character that can shut down robots. So yeah, that would be very, very nice. And also, I kind of like the idea of Iron Patriot being able to like dash back and kind of recalibrate his suit in order to like cleanse out kind of negative effects, some of the debuffs. And I think with, you know, Ghost just being able to swipe back and immediately remove everything and convert it into Fury, if Iron Patriot could like dash back and hold block for 1 second and remove the debuffs, that'd be a really great time. So yeah, fingers crossed for that, man. I think those would be some very cool mechanics there. And then next up, we have the wonderful Deadpool X-Force, who is a 6-star character at the moment. Probably the most underwhelming 6-star character to get. So I think there needs to be a huge revamp in terms of how Deadpool X-Force's bleed works. He just needs to be an absolute hack-and-slash character. I think his signature ability at the moment, which applies bleed but refreshes, it needs to stack. There needs to be some sort of way to either refresh bleeds or just apply an insane amount of bleeds. And yeah, I think Deadpool should really all be about kind of bleeding the opponent and kind of hacking them down as much as possible, but maybe add kind of a few tricks, tips and tricks up his sleeve, like maybe some stuns and maybe some clever ways to either get rid of power or play around certain special attacks would be interesting as well. So yeah, I'd just like to see a big revamp on Deadpool X-Force. I think he is pretty up the list, to be honest. And next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have a character, or two kind of two characters fit into this one, but we got Magneto, man. Magneto is such a iconic Marvel character. He is one of the greats out there, man. But Magneto in this game, he's so old, he's so underwhelming in terms of both of them, and his mechanics are very much outdated. So I think what I'd first like to see with Magneto is kind of a revamped metal sense against any characters that have any sort of trace of metal, similar to Blade's danger sense would be really, really good, because the ability accuracy reduction right now on both of them is kind of underwhelming in comparison and doesn't really, you know, touch the sides or do a sufficient enough job. So I feel like he should have a damage increase and kind of additional effects, such as, I don't know, maybe bleeding by crushing them in even more, or if the opponent can't bleed, maybe he has some sort of like shock ability or degeneration, kind of like pulling out wires inside or something like that. That'd be very, very cool to see. And also increased heal block duration on the Special 2. His Special 2 heal block is very, very short at the moment. It would be also quite cool to, if whenever the opponent got like an armor up, if he instantly shattered it and applied like an armor break as well, that'd be a pretty cool mechanic there. Improved bleed on special attacks, and special attacks maybe cut deeper and refresh bleeds, so you know, you're just absolutely hurling metal at the opponent with Magneto, and it's just a really, really fun time. So I think there's quite a bit that could be done with Magneto to make him a significantly better character, and I do hope he gets buffed. Now, next up, we have everybody's favorite super effective Alliance War attacker. We've got Cyclops. So I was thinking, you know, when it comes to Cyclops as a character and playing Cyclops, what is Cyclops all about, man? He's about taking down that visor and burning the crap out the opponent with giant laser beams. That's essentially it, man. Using that vision to absolutely shred the opponent. So I think stuff that I'd like to see on Cyclops is maybe like a really like big effort to increase this guy's damage, because Cyclops could be a character that just burns through with kind of like raw damage and also incinerate as well. So I think one thing I'd like to see, because again, special attacks are big on Cyclops, is an increase to his base power gain, very similar to like Carnage has at the start of the fight. So increased power gain by like 50%, so he's gaining 50% more power. All his special attacks have True Strike as well, so they can't be evaded. They're going to bypass any sort of resistance and also apply like several stacks of Incinerate as well. So Cyclops is just all about kind of, you know, burning the opponent down as quickly as you possibly can with a visor, and your opponent's not really being able to do anything when they are hit with those special attacks. So I think those would be some really cool mechanics to see on Cyclops, but I think, again, there's even more that could be added to make this character even crazier, and stuff that could be done with the Incinerate mechanics and the ability to maybe refresh them using certain combinations of special attacks. So yeah, Cyclops, man, I would love to see a big Cyclops revamp, especially now that he's being added to the 6-star crystal, because he's a little bit underwhelming at the moment. And then we have Iron Man. So there are quite a few versions of Iron Man. We've got the classic one and also the superior one. But I was thinking, you know, what's very fun about playing Iron Man? And again, it's quite similar to Cyclops. It's throwing off those big special attacks from the arc reactor. So I'd like to see you get something like arc reactor charges on critical hits, or maybe like your heavy attack is boosted and you get like charges on the heavy attack or something like that. And the arc reactor charges significantly pump out the damage of that, pump up the damage and crit chance and crit damage of the special attacks. So you kind of fight and you're gaining these charges, and it's your choice whether to you know, dump them on the special 1, maybe get like a very small one, special 2, and maybe get a substantially bigger one, or special 3, kind of save it up for a very, very big arc reactor overload there. So that'd be really cool, but I'd also like to see Iron Man get something, again, similar to what we talked about with Iron Patriot, the ability to like dash back and maybe hold block for a few seconds and like cleanse the suit of any debuffs there would be very cool. And I'd also like to see his arc overload split into like 2 separate ones, one that proc to like 50% and 25%, very similar to Ultron, because I think those thresholds are much more useful than the just one proc at 20%. So yeah, that'd be very, very nice to see. But I think there's definitely some cool stuff that you can do with Iron Man, and also, you know, to further increase his damage, add stuff like Incinerate to the arc overload, and, you know, you can do some certainly fun stuff there. So Iron Man, I love the OG one, man. He just needs to get significantly buffed, definitely. So anyway, what do we have next, ladies and gentlemen? We have everybody's favorite monster from the Lagoon, the Abomination. So I'd love to see Abomination. You know, you have Carnage, who's just like the absolute bleed king at the moment. I'd like to see Abomination change to a character that is just kind of raking in the poisons on his opponents. So I'd like him to have some very like rapidly stacking poisons would be very, very cool. You kind of build up the fury, maybe with like a persistent charge mechanic as well if you want it to continue into certain fights. But I think kind of poison and applying a lot of poison should be kind of the big theme of Abomination when playing this character. You should feel like you're absolutely contaminating the opponent, but it'd be very nice to see him have an ability with like the special 2 where he can merge the poisons to apply something like a heal reversal to the opponent. I think that'd be really, really cool to see as well. But I think there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that you could do with Abomination, but essentially make him like a crazy poison character in terms of his damage output for all those bleed immune ones, and yeah, give him some ability to reverse healing as well, and there you go, you've got a viable character that nobody's super disappointed to pull. And next up we have Iron Fist on the list. Now Iron Fist got gutted, mate. He got absolutely gutted by patch 12.0 in terms of his damage output, and also the day Medusa came, man, is the day Iron Fist just found himself in the bin, in a bit of an awkward scenario where he just didn't really fit into any of the metas of the game. Iron Fist is quite fun to play in terms of his animations, but I feel like he's lacking a lot of the core stuff from Iron Fist in kind of the comics and also the Netflix series. So yeah, I'd love to see Iron Fist have kind of more intense armor breaks that can form in some sort of way, maybe via a special attack, maybe via a heavy attack, into an armor shatter that you again could completely shut down certain opponents such as robots. That'd be very, very cool to see. I'd also like to see him have kind of like a base damage buff as well. Maybe he could apply some sort of like energy based damage when he has, or maybe goes into a phase where he has you know, summons the power of the Iron Fist. Maybe that's triggered by a heavy attack, and then you start dealing kind of excess energy damage on top of your standard hits, so you can kind of bypass stuff like physical resistance. I think that'd be pretty cool there. I think also to keep up with some of the Mystic champions, it'd be nice if either on the special 3 or again like the heavy attack or a certain special attack, he had the ability to remove like all of the buffs, because he does purge some buffs from the heavy attack, but it's really, he only gets rid of what is it, like Cruelty, Fury, and Precision, which are ones that you almost never need to get rid of, so that does tend to be pretty useless in the majority of scenarios. And also if Iron Fist had some sort of way to I think like kind of blade mechanic, like dash back and convert some of his power into healing, that'd be very, very nice to see as well. But yeah, I feel like a lot could be done with Iron Fist, man, and I would love to see it at some point in the future. And then we have 3 more characters left, ladies and gentlemen, and the first one is a character that's definitely been substantially left behind in terms of the symbiote class this year, which is Venom. So Venom, you know, when he was released, he was an alright character, but Venom Pool has just, you know, kind of definitely got greatly overshadowed by the majority of new champions that have appeared in MCOC. So he's already got some alright utility. You can sap buffs off the special one and convert them into healing, but now Venom has that, and, you know, 5 times more damage and a lot more utility as well. And also he has a very, well, short duration heal block for a special 2. It's a 9.5 second duration heal block on the special 2, which is so short, nowhere near 100% uptime there. So yeah, that's a little bit underwhelming. So some of the stuff that I'd like to see with Venom Pool is increase his heal block duration. This should be at least like 20-25 seconds would be very, very nice. I'd like to see a big damage buff, maybe something with a signature ability, and these random buffs being a little bit more effective and guaranteed. Like every 6 seconds you're going to get a buff from the symbiote, but maybe then whenever you use a special attack you're also going to get a buff as well. Maybe there can be something like Venom the Duck-esque with persistent charges there and some of the buffs coming back at certain intervals. But I think there's some cool stuff that you can definitely do with Venom Pool that I would like to see explored a little bit more in detail, because this character's got a good base. He just needs, you know, a little bit more love, care and attention, I reckon. And then next up we have a champion that I think most people forget is in the game and a playable character, and that is Falcon, ladies and gentlemen. I have a 5-star awakened version of this dude, and I've played about with him as a 5-star quite a bit, because I love Falcon's animations. Falcon is so much fun to play, but this character is just so comparatively underwhelming and just hits like an absolute wet noodle, man. The damage is very, very disappointing. So what I would like to see from Falcon is, because he has Red Wing incorporated in a lot of his mechanics and ability descriptions, is I'd like to see him have some sort of way to generate a true strike buff, maybe with Red Wing scouting out the opponent, because he does have, you can dash back, hold block, and you get locked on, which does reduce the defensive ability accuracy of the opponent for by 100% for 10 seconds. So I don't know, I kind of like to see this maybe be a little bit quicker to fire off. Maybe if it was only like half a second or 1 second, because 2 seconds holding block is a long time holding block, ladies and gentlemen. You can take a lot of damage in that. So yeah, it's just not really that effective for a very, very short duration. So you could increase the duration of that to like 20-30 seconds would be very, very nice as well. I'd also like to see him have a bit of a damage buff and be able to get kind of multiple bleeds off the special one, which is where he kind of like flings himself back and then you just rapid shoot the opponent. It's a very fun special to fire off. But also, I think a mechanic where Falcon is kind of like analyzing the opponent on the special one, and he gets some sort of analysis mechanic, and you keep on firing off special ones, so he's kind of like gunning down the opponent with the special ones, and when you feel comfortable, when you get to 5 stacks of it, you can throw off a special 2 and swoop in for like some mega damage. I feel like that'd be really, really cool to see with Falcon. And maybe the analysis charges, they stack, they have some sort of persistent charge mechanic, so it can go from fight to fight. But I would love to see a big old Falcon revamp, man. I am all aboard that Falcon revamp train. So yeah, I would definitely thoroughly enjoy seeing that. And the next character that we have, ladies and gentlemen, is everybody's favorite cosmic big-fisted gal. We have the Kamala Khan. So Kamala Khan, you know, I feel like what she needs is kind of like 2 things to make her like a little bit more spicy, but maybe 3 things as well, maybe some additional utility. But the first thing, the Furies, man, base, I think they should last quite a bit longer. Ideally, like double duration would be really, really good to see. But I'd also like to see Kamala get plus 10% power gain, 5 to 10% power gain per Fury that she has active. Because I think, again, when it comes to Kamala, one of the fun things is kind of, you know, morphing with the special attacks and throwing those off. So if you're just, you know, able to kind of get into the fight, start ramping up these character, get a ton of Furies, and you're just, you know, doing like combos, throwing either a special 1 or a special 2, it's going to be a much, much more fun time. So if you add that, kind of make her, you know, a very like raw physical damage champion with enhanced power gain mechanics, and just make her all about kind of that big damage and also the big Furies and big power gain. I feel like that'd be a really, really fun way to do her. But also maybe there's some sort of way that her big fist can grant her true strike as well to bypass some of the auto blocks. Would be very, very nice. And maybe something with enhanced damage on the heavy attack as well would be very cool. But yeah, I think there is A lot of interesting stuff that could be done to kind of ramp up Kamala Khan and make her a bit more of an exciting character. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the 15 characters. Again, there are probably so many more, man. There's probably about 25 more characters, at least, that do need a great deal of love, care, and attention. Because, again, there's such a big gap between some of, like, the top characters in the game and some of the champions that we've talked about today and some of the ones toward kind of the bottom tier. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what characters would you like to see receive a buff in 2019? What are you desperately holding on for? Please do let me know in the comment section below. But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, feel free to smash that like button. Aside from that, take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.